How are you settled with the lockdown and isolation, staying more at home and not socializing? And whenever you step out, I'm sure you're keeping the social distance. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. So today I'm going to read a story which is called All Summer in a Day by an American author, Ray Bradbury. This author was very fond of magical stories and science fiction, so he wrote something like that. And this story is set on Venus, the second planet from the Sun. Today, we know that Venus has a surface temperature of almost 900 Fahrenheit. In 1950, when Ray Bradbury wrote this story, some scientists believed that the clouds of Venus concealed a watery world. That information may have led Bradbury to create a setting of soggy jungles and constant rain. So imagine how you would feel seeing the sun if it had been raining for 7 years. This is the situation for school children in All Summer in a Day on planet Venus. So let's get started. Ready now? Soon. Do the scientists really know? Will it happen today? Will it? Look, see for yourself. The children press to each other like so many roses, so many weeds intermixed, peering out for a look at the hidden sun. Mind that they had never seen sun. It rained. It had been raining for 7 years. Thousands upon sands of days compounded and filled from one end to the other with rain, with the drum and gush of water, with the sweet crystal of fall of showers and the concussion of storms so heavy they were tidal waves come over the islands. So look at the sound and the imagery. You can actually imagine the constant concussion and sound and pitter-patter. Imagine that happening constantly, 24 hours. 1,000 forests had been crushed under the rain and grown up 1,000 times to be crushed again. And this was the way life was forever on the planet Venus, and this was the schoolroom of the children, of the rocket men and women who had come to a raining world to set up a civilization and live out their lives on planet Venus. It's stopping! Yes! Margaret stood apart from them. Now she's the main character. From these children who could never remember a time when there wasn't rain. They were all 9 years old, and if there had been a day 7 years ago when the sun came out for an hour and showed its face to the stunned world, they could not recall. Sometimes at night she heard them stir in remembrance, and she knew they were dreaming and remembering gold or a yellow crayon or a coin large enough to buy the world with. She knew they thought. They remembered a warmness, like a blushing in the face, in the body, in the arms and legs and trembling hands. But then they always awoke to the tatting drum, the endless shaking down of clear bead necklaces, the raindrops. Upon the roof, the walk, the gardens, the forests, and their dreams were gone. Only yesterday they had read in the class about how like a lemon it was and how hot. They had written small stories or essays or poems about it. I think the sun is a flower that blooms just for 1 hour. That was Margaret's poem. read in a quiet voice in the still classroom while the rain was falling outside. "Oh, you didn't write that," protested one of the boys. "I did," said Margaret. "I did." "William," said the teacher, "but that was yesterday." Now the rain was slackening and the children were crushed in the thick great windows. "Where's teacher? She'll be back. She'd better hurry. We'll miss it." They turned on themselves like a feverish wheel, all fumbling spokes. Margaret stood alone. She was a very frail girl who looked as if she had been lost in the rain for years and years, and the rain had washed out the blue from her eyes. How she misses sun, how she misses the warmth, how she misses the earth. And the rain had washed out the blue color of the eyes, and the red from her mouth, and the yellow from her hair. She was an old photograph dusted from an album, whitened away, and if she spoke at all, her voice would be a ghost. Now she stood, separate, staring at the rain and the loud wet world beyond the huge glass. "What are you looking at?" said William. Margaret said nothing. "Speak when you're spoken to." He gave her a shove, but she did not move. Rather, she let herself be moved only by him and nothing else. They edged away from her. They would not look at her. She felt them go away, and this was because she would play no games with them in the echoing tunnels of the underground city. If they tagged her and ran, she stood blinking after them and did not follow. When the class sang songs about happiness and life and games, her lips barely moved. Only when they sang about the sun and the summer did her lips move as she watched the drenched windows. And then, of course, the biggest crime of all was that she had come here only 5 years ago from Earth. And she remembered the sun and the way the sun was and the sky was when she was 4 in Ohio. So she's 9 years old now. And they had been on Venus all their lives, these kids, not like Margaret. And they had been only 2 years old when the last sun came out. That means the sun shines on Venus after every 7 years. And had long since forgotten the color and heat of it and the way it really was. But Margaret remembered. "It's like a penny," she said once, eyes closed. "No, it's not," children cried. "It's like a fire," she said, "in the stove." "You're lying, you don't remember," cried the children. But she remembered and stood quietly apart from all of them and watched the patterning windows. At once, a month ago, she had refused to shower in the school shower rooms, had clutched her hands to her ears and over her head, screaming the water mustn't touch her head. So after that, dimly she sensed she was different, and they knew her difference and kept away. They was told that her father and mother were taking her back to Earth next year. It seemed vital to her that they do so, though it would mean the loss of thousands of dollars to her family. And so children hated her for all these reasons of big and little consequence. They hated her pale, sallow face, her fading silence, her thinness, scrawniness, and her possible future of going to Earth. "Get away," the boy gave her another push. "What you waiting for?" Then for the first time she turned and looked at him, and what she was waiting for was in her eyes, the desperation to see the sunlight. "Well, don't wait around her," cried the boy savagely. "You won't see nothing." Her lips moved. "Nothing," he cried. "It was all a joke, wasn't it?" He turned to the other children. "Nothing's happening today, is it?" They all blinked at him. and then understanding laughed and shook their heads. No, 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 nothing, nothing. Oh, but Margaret whispered, her eyes helpless. But this is the day the scientists predict. They say they know the sun. All a joke, said the boy, and seized her roughly. Hey everyone, let's put her in a closet before teacher comes. Oh my God, do you think what's going to happen? I can guess. No, said Margaret, falling back. No, no. They surged about her, got her up and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself. Poor thing. Open! Open! Let me out! They heard her muffled cries. Oh. Then smiling they turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. Isn't that rude? Is it? Can I have a look? All right. Ready, children? She glanced at her watch. Yes, said everyone. Are we all here? Yes. The rain slackened. Still more, they crowded to the huge door. The rain stopped. It was as if in the midst of a film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, thus muffling and finally cutting off all noise. All of the blasts and repercussions and thunders, and then second, ripped the film from the projector and inserted in its place a peaceful tropical slide which did not move or tremor. The world ground to a standstill. The silence was so immense and unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed or you had lost your hearing altogether. The children put their hands to their ears. They stood apart. The door slid back and the smell of the silent, waiting world came into them. You can see the dark forest in front of them, right? And now, what will they see? The sun after 7 years. Can you believe it? On planet Venus. The sun came out. It was the color of flaming bronze and it was very large. And the sky around it was a blazing blue tile color. And the jungle burned with sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed out, yay, yelling into the springtime. Now don't go too far, called the teacher after them. You've only 2 hours. You know you wouldn't want to get caught out. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky with delight and feeling the sun on their cheeks like a warm iron. They were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? Look at the kids. Look at the kids. And the girl who was desperately waiting, quivering nervously, anxiously. She's messing it out. She's locked her in the closet. Do you remember that? Okay, much better. They stopped running and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus, that grew and never stopped growing tumultuously, even as you watched it. It was a nest of octopi, clustering up great arms of flesh like weed, wavering, flowering in this brief spring. It was the color of rubber and ash, this jungle from the many years without sun. So imagine what can happen without sun. It was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink. It was the color of the moon. Can you imagine? The children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress and heard it sigh. and squeak under them, resilient and alive. They ran among the trees, they slipped and fell, they pushed each other, they played hide and seek and tag, but most of all they squinted at the sun until tears ran down their faces. Tears ran down their faces. They put their hands up to that yellowness and that amazing blueness, and they breathed of the fresh air and listened to the silence, which Margaret was so desperately waiting for. Fresh air, and listened to the silence which suspended them in a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. Steady. They looked at everything and savored everything. Then wildly like animals escaped from the caves. They ran and shouting circles. They ran for an hour and did not stop running. And then, in the midst of their running, one of the girls wailed. Everyone stopped. The girl, standing in the open, held out her hand. "Oh, look," she said, trembling. They came slowly to look at her open palm. In the center of it, carved and huge, was a single raindrop. She began to cry. Looking at it, they glanced quietly at the sky. Oh, no. A few cold red drops fell on their noses and their cheeks and their mouths. The sun faded behind a stir of mist. A wind blew cool around them. They turned and started to walk back towards the underground house, their hands at their sides, their smiles vanishing away. Are you surprised? A boom of thunder startled them, and like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. Lightning struck 10 miles away, 5 miles away, a mile, a half mile. It's coming closer. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash. Okay. They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment, unless it was raining hard. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanches everywhere and forever. Will it be 7 more years? Yes, 7. Then one of them gave a little cry. Oh no, Margaret! What? She's still in the closet where we locked her. Margaret! They stood as if someone had driven them like so many stakes into the floor. They felt so guilty. They looked at each other and then looked away. They glanced out at the world that was raining now and raining steadily. They could not meet each other's glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. They looked at each other's hands and feet, their faces down. One of the girls said, "Well, no one moved." "Go on," whispered the girl. They walked slowly down the hall in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder, lighting on their faces, blue and terrible. They walked over to the closet door slowly and stood quiet. Behind the closet door was only silence. Margaret was exhausted waiting for them. She knew she had missed the hour. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margaret out. So how do you feel? Can you imagine life on another planet? Well, people are planning to go to Mars, aren't they? So do you have such future plans? Things are happening. Things are happening fast in science and technology. Maybe some of you will be becoming scientists. Well, good luck to you and make us proud. And you all have your dreams, I'm sure, and visions. Go ahead, but you have to work hard. And I hope you are making the most of the lockdown because of COVID-19. You're spending a lot of time with your family, keeping yourselves clean, your environment clean, and keeping the social distance when you step out. And do not go closer to anyone, do not shake hands, do not sneeze on anyone, right? And keep your distance at least 6 feet or 4 feet away from them. And when you come back, kindly wash your hands for 20 seconds like you watched on TV, and then you can use a sanitizer and go about your life. How about reading books? You have ample time. You have ample time to play board games and get to know your family, isn't it? And help with the errands at home. They are endless, aren't they? So have a good time, enjoy yourselves, and I'll be waiting for your feedback. I would love to know if you have a list of stories which you would like me to read them out to you. It'll be a pleasure. It was a pleasure seeing you. Lovely. Bye-bye. See you soon.